Hi, are you ready for Christmas? This is a little Santa Claus painting, and it comes to you in the form of a pen and ink. So you have all the major lines drawn in and it's ready to go. It can be used on many surfaces, but the way I've used it is on a greeting card. And as you can see, I can use it as my Christmas card if I choose. And you can also do that. You could finish yours after painting, take it and have it printed or run it on your home personal printer and mail it out as your Christmas card. So it's really fun. I hope you will join me and enjoy the process. And Merry Christmas. If you want to get the drawing, you may go to Louise Jackson paintingclasses.com. and it will be available with absolutely no charge. And I'm going to put a little plastic sleeve here to keep it clean. And I'm going to cut mine down just a little bit more because I think I'm getting a glare on my camera screen. So I just took a full plastic sleeve and cut it to the size I wanted it to be and left part of it closed as you would in a corner. And then I'll just slip this under here because this will keep my paper from getting paint on it, hopefully. And that's a little better. It won't glare at you now. Okay, we're going to start by painting the face with a wash of color, and I'm going to mix a color that looks something like this. It's like a pink flesh tone, and I will mix yellow and my bright red. See that on screen. Maybe we'll move over here and you can see a little better. That might work better. And put a little bit of that bright red in there. It's kind of a pinky flesh tone. You know, everybody has either your coloring leans to the pink or to the gold. And that would be toward the yellow. Now that's good because when it's watered down it's going to be very similar to that. So I'm going to put a little more water with it. And I'm going to start on the left side of the face. And just apply the water and go around the mustache and just go right over the eye, over the nose, I'm working from the left side to the right side. I don't want to work from one side and stop and then go to the other side, because then you'll get a hard line, you won't be able to get out of there. So you just work from here all the way across. Okay, come back in and touch it up, and then I might just put a little bit more down here because it's still wet enough that I can do that. And go right up to where you think the hat is. Okay, I'm just adding a little bit more in here and making him a little darker. Making sure everything is covered, and then I will let that dry. All right, now your hat is going to be done with the red bright rose, and I will use a small brush. I'm using a 6. You might use something even a little larger than that. But I also want to get a large brush out. Could be a 10, could be a 20, but I want to have it wet and then take most of the water out of it, so it's just a damp, thirsty brush. And the reason is I want to lift some color out of here to create some areas that look a little bit lighter. And I'm going to go right about to there, and then I'm going to just lift. My brush has water removed. Remember, it's a damp brush. And I just want to lift a little color out of there just to create another value. I'm painting this on relatively dark, which means I'm not picking up a lot of water with it. This was taught to a group of painters for a relatively short class, to a group of experienced painters, and then to a group of novices where we took a little bit longer. But they both did great. Okay, I'm going to pull that around, and you get kind of caught up in going around the leaves and those little shapes. And it's not meant to be smooth, so don't worry about that. Okay, just filling that in. Because if you think about a Santa's hat, there's texture to it. Whether it's velvet or a heavy cotton. So you're going to see light areas and dark areas, and you're going to also see different shapes of things in there. So don't get worried that it's not getting smooth enough, because it doesn't have to be smooth. Okay, now I'm going to come over here, and I've got to fill in this area here along the edge of the forehead. All the way to that leaf. It's really just like color book painting at this point. And you could also use colored pencils or watercolor pencils or acrylics or crayons or just about anything else you could think of that makes colors, markers. Okay, I'm getting this in nice dark here. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to take that real strong dark I've got on there and just come in and hit a few areas. And this will help create a little stronger value change. And I'm not particularly trying to create any shape, just trying to get some lights and darks. And I don't want to create anything too distracting, so I'm just going to take that one out. Okay, just make it dark up there, lighter there. That's fine. All right, now the rest of the hat is done just with the dark paint. When I say dark paint, what I mean is don't have a lot of water in it, okay? And if it goes on drier, that makes it darker. Okay. Santa's a happy little fellow, and he's got lots of stuff stuck on his hat. I have one Santa I did a while ago with a lot of fruit on his hat, and he's kind of fun. Sort of like what they call Wenceslas Santa. It's funny where you get your inspiration. I walked into a department store one day, and it was near Christmas, and they had a giant Santa in there, and he had all this fruit on his head. And I thought, oh my gosh, that would make such a great painting. So I went home and drew my Santa and put fruit all over his head. It was just kind of fun. Okay, now let's take this out here. And here. Now, those of you that are novices, if you've never painted anything before, I'm using a relatively small brush. It's a 6 round, and it has a very nice point on it. So when I need to get into these tiny little areas, it works fine. And I don't spread it out, I keep it up on the tip. And that's how you get into the little small areas. Okay, now when I come into a big area like this, then I can really spread it out. I'm going to stop right there. And I always turn my paper around so I can be aiming it toward any line that I want to keep straight. Now on the suit, we're pretty much going to do the same thing. Get it really dry, and then just come in. This is the shoulder line, right about here. And go right around that area. It will just remind you where the shoulder is. And then we're going to wait and do the rest of this after we shade the beard, okay? My berries got really, really dull, and I'm going to wait until this is dry, and then I'll go back and put a little bit of my hot pink on it. If they don't show up, I may mix a little white into it, but hopefully they'll show up a little better than they are now. Okay, what I want to do is take some cobalt blue, and I need to get a little bit more out here. You can see it better that way. And let me make sure that's on the screen. Let's go up here a little further. There we go. Okay. I tend to get carried away painting and not checking to see what's on the screen. Okay, what I want to do is I want to take and do some blue shading around the areas of the beard that have the lines drawn in them. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to pull some color out like so, and then I'll take and rinse my brush, take all the water out of it, and then stretch that out. Now, if you can't do that, don't worry about it. Just make it come down and follow this shape. Okay, see the line coming down like that? That's what I was trying to do. Now, from the bottom up, you do the same thing. Let's turn it upside down. It's always easier to pull something towards you than to push away. So I'm just going to use the tip of the brush this time and just pull some of those strokes inward like so. Okay, leaving holes, leaving some white. Now, if you have only one brush and it's this 6 round, then you would go around this whole piece doing just what I did here, leaving some white, but following the lines that are drawn here. And then when you get over here, you're going this other way. You just follow those lines. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, if you have a larger brush, how you can accomplish that a little faster. And that is to take your large round brush, and load it on both sides, and then spread it out like that, almost like a fan brush. And then you can come in like that with this nice big brush. I'm still following those lines, but you can see how much faster I would get that done. Okay, let's see if I still have enough paint on here to go around. Switch directions right about there. Just keep spreading your brush out as it comes back together. You might even have to pick up a little more paint. Maybe not. Maybe I'm okay. Okay. Then down here, you want to do the same thing and just give it a little turn, a little curve. It's just going to put a little bit of shading underneath Santa's mustache. Okay. Now to complete the hair up here, I'm going to go back to my 6. And use a kind of a light touch here. Oops, a little too much paint. And just pull that color in like so. And I have to turn my paper so that I'm always pulling toward my stomach whenever I can. It's just better control for me. While I'm here, I'm going to put some shading at the bottom of my mustache. And then I will go over here. I keep getting a little too dark, and when that happens, what I want to do is put a little more water in my brush and take the excess water out after I pick up a little bit more blue paint. That's how I control the amount of water that I have, is by taking the water out of the brush. And you'd think, well, why couldn't you know how much to put into it? Well, it's very difficult to think in terms of how much you're putting in, because once you dip your water into your water container, there's really no way to know how much you're picking up. But I do know how much I'm taking out. Okay. So now I'll take it out again, and then I have this little section here to do. And I want to get a shape following those curves, because that's what's making his curls. Something coming in here like that. It gives you some shading, and maybe I'll put a few more strokes right there. 1 or 2 there. Okay, now this will act as shading underneath his beard, and we are going to use white paint. And the white paint that you're going to use can be anything white that you have. It can be acrylics, it can be tempera, it can be titanium white opaque watercolor, it can be gouache, it can be Jo Sonia's gouache. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be, I don't know, I can't think of any other kind, but there's a lot of other kinds, I'm sure. Okay, I'm going to come down to the suit and paint that in. I'm going to take this red all the way up here, because that's how my original one was done. And I'm just going to pretend like it's going right to the edge of my paper right there. See that? I can make this guy a little fatter. I like that, because then he's going off, or you're seeing his shoulder back there. What you want to do is bring a few of your red strokes in. You see what that does? It starts to set the edge of the hair up. By doing that, you're filling it around it, and I'll turn it this way and fill up very close, like so. And then I'll just pull a couple of spaces in like that. Not a real lot, but a few every now and then, because you want it to look like the hair is coming out over the Santa suit. And again, don't worry about the texture, the choppiness. That adds texture looking to the cloth if it's not too smooth. I need to get a little more bright rose out here. I tried to put a little bit of paint out because I end up cleaning the palette off usually after each one of these little snippets, because I try and put a small separate palette out so you don't get too confused by all the colors that I really have on my palette. And you can see where I'm working better. I think I'm going to go down and just go all the way down to that second line and just ignore that little edge there. What do you think? Yeah, I think so. Make your life easier. It actually was meant to be the top edge of the belt, but it's not totally necessary. And I'm trying to simplify this as much as I can. I'm losing my plastic sleeve, and you know what that means. If I lose it, for sure I will get paint on that back. It's kind of fun to have this to send to your friends, and you may, make that a little bigger, you may copy the pen and ink and make your Christmas card with it if you choose. And on the back there's a place for you to sign it, and perfectly legal because I'm giving you permission to use it. I'm going to make a few little cut-ins right there. Okay. Now when I put the white on, if this pink is not dry, or red I should say, it will grade pink because it'll mix with my white. So it's going to be dry before I do that. Okay, I'm going to take that and go right over that line. Now do you see the line that is inside the belt buckle? I'm going to come all the way down to that bottom line and just fill that area in, and it's part of Santa's suit. Okay, I have to keep making sure that I'm on screen because I already did this once and I'm not a very good director. While I'm painting, I forget to check and see what's on screen and what's not. So we are doing it again. Okay. Now I'm going to pull that up in a jagged fashion. Come in close here. And then you change directions right about the middle. So you want to watch your directions of the lines that were drawn for you. I love to do pen and inks. And then once you get them done, always make a copy of them because there's so many fun things you can do with them. Okay. Oops. Let's go up here. Okay, well this is really not looking good because it's kind of straight, right? Got to break that up. And then we're going to put white out there, so white will go over the edge of that anyway. So that will be much better. Okay, because I'll bring the white right up to the edge of the paper actually. Okay. Now I could go ahead and paint the dark on right now, but I don't want to because I know I'll be laying my hand in it. One thing I am going to do is reinforce the cobalt blue on Santa's eyes because my printer did not get very bright. So we'll just paint that over the iris part of his eye. Make it a little brighter. Okay, now what I want to do is get some white out and start. No, we're not going to do white. We're going to do his face first. Is it dry enough? Yeah, it's still a little damp, so I will start with the white. Okay, as I said, you can use tempera, you can use acrylic, you can use bottled acrylic, you can use tube acrylic. I have some Liquitex, a heavy-bodied white. Not that I need a heavy-bodied white for this, I really don't, but it was handy. That's what I'm going to use. Regular bottled white would work just as well. And I've got this on, it's not really on my palette, it's on a piece of, I don't know, it's like almost like a plastic paper. Okay, because it's acrylic, I don't want it on my palette. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the mustache. And I'm going to go over the graphite line and pull the color up from the blue. And then I'm going to go over the top of the graphite line, or the ink line, I'm sorry. The ink line. And it's going to show through a little bit. I'm not trying to cover it completely. I'm trying to diminish it a little bit. Okay, so see, look, compare this side to this side. You don't notice the ink as much over here as you do here. And that's my goal. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. If you are working with colored pencils, I would suggest using your white pencil over this ink just a little bit to soften it. or diminish it a little bit so it's not quite so strong. I'm trying to get this thinned down a little bit. The heavy body is a little overkill. It's so thick. It's making a thickness to my brush. I love this stuff, but it's more heavy than I need right now. Okay, then I'm going to come around the bottom and just pull some hair into the area under the beard. Now, one thing I want to tell you, if you decided to use the 90-pound paper, it's not quite as white as cardstock is. And I think that's not it either. I'll find one and show you. It's a little more on the yellow side, just a very slight yellow cast. So I just want you to be aware of that. It'll be a different look. But what I want to do is I also want to start out here, and I'll go right under the beard so you can really see the change that it makes. It's nice having your lines all drawn for you, and that's the fun of working on somebody's pen and ink. But when you're trying to turn it into a sort of a painting, it's kind of nice to kick back those lines a little bit too. Okay, so I'm just going to take some of the white. You could even just paint right over it and then pull some of it out. Paint it like that and then pull it out. Paint it like that and pull it out. Okay. I like to have some areas that are just like white, and some places where the lines show through more and some places where they show through less. And I don't like to create another line. Do you see this outside edge here? So what I'll do is I'll take some white and I'll come in from the outside inward, and that will break that line for me. Because you tend to pull everything out the same length and it creates another line. So by coming from the outside back, it diminishes that. Okay, so it's just easier to pull them all one way and then push a few back. And this needs to go. Okay, and then check the bottom to make sure you didn't make any major changes there. And put a few more light ones back in there. This dude has white hair, and what we're painting are the shadows in the hair. Okay, and let's pull some here. The outside edge will be done pretty much the same way. Now these areas here, all you have to do is follow the curve of the ink line. Have enough water on your brush so your paint moves. And you can take your hair so it just comes up right off the edge. And you might pick up a little bit of red. I kind of like it, so I think I'll keep it. Now I'm going to go back to the large brush, and I'm going to use the same technique. Fill my brush on both sides and then spread it out. Now remember, if you're using acrylic, probably need to wash your hands. And the other thing you could do would be to use a fan brush if you have one. I have one, but I won't use it because you all might not have one. And this works just as well. See, I'm still following the direction that those lines were drawn in. Maybe I can spread it a little without using my fingers. The drier your red is, the less it will bleed in on your Santa. I don't have the time to wait for it to really dry up real well. But if you gave it about 20 minutes or so, it wouldn't move as much as mine will. Okay, let's come down here. Of course, I am of the opinion you can never have too much pink, so it's okay. Let's spread that out again. And right about the middle is where you switch direction. And remember I said that you could spread it with the paper towel. Maybe that would be better for my fingers. Yeah, that's better. Right here I'll start going the other way. Remember, as I said, to turn it always so it's comfortable for you. Spread it out. If you wanted to paint this Santa onto a piece of wood, and you wanted to use these same techniques, I think it somewhat would work with acrylics. But if you wanted to do it with watercolor, you could. And here's how. The product on the market called absorbent ground. And if you put 2 or 3 coats of absorbent ground on your wood piece, it makes it very similar to watercolor paper. And it really is kind of amazing. It makes it porous. Okay, I don't need those edges to be real neat, and I like the fact that some of the red is still showing that we pulled through with those little creases. And I'm going to take my brush and use my smaller brush now, but I want to come in and make some streaks out here so it's just not looking so tight and perfect, and it looks, give it a little more windblown look. Okay, let's come down here with a little more curls. Okay, and I'm going to go here all the way to the edge. And on this side, you see how that pulled some loose hairs out there. because I don't care if you just walked out of the beauty shop and have a ton of hairspray on your hair, you're still going to have some loose flyaway hair at the edge. It's just the nature of the hair. I'm trying to get rid of this internal line here. And then as I come up here, I have to deal with this little fold, or wave, I guess you could say. And it can go either way. It can come there and go down. Just again, follow those ink lines. Okay. Not taking too long. And let's put a little bit out here. I like to cover the ink, but leave, let's put it this way. I like to cover the blue and leave the shading through there, but not be able to say, oh, that's definitely a blue area. I just want it to become part of the shadow. So if it's a little too dark, which mine might be, I just take the side of my brush like that and scoot some more paint on it. Okay, then I'm going to come up here and complete this side, again following the ink lines. Now, where do you suppose we need to put this as well? We need to put it on the eyebrows. But before we do that, I'm going to have you do a little bit of shading on the face. He doesn't need much. Let's tone this down here. Okay. And then we'll put a little bit more white right in here. Okay, I like that. I like to get rid of or diminish the ink line even at the back edge of the hair, because now I don't want it to look like a pen and ink so much as I want it to look like a painting. So I don't want to see all the ink lines. Does that make sense? Okay. I do use a lot of ink in different paintings. For instance, if I'm doing a flower center that might be really tedious to paint a million dots in it, I might use my pen for something like that. Of course, I guess in reality, then you have to say it's mixed media, which it is, but that's okay. I am no longer a purist. I do whatever works and whatever makes my life easier, because I reached a point where I just want to have fun. Okay, I like that. I love it when there's a really heavy white area and then some not so heavy areas near it. It gives it highs and lows. And this is still ending too abruptly, so I'm going to come back in with some more white. Now you have to be the judge of yours. You don't have a teacher walking around the room critiquing your work. At some point on my site, we're going to have that available to you where you can mail me a picture of your finished piece and I can help by offering suggestions if you want. We haven't gotten that far yet. We're kind of newbies at this. And I'm working with some people that are very busy with other computer endeavors, so I know nothing about this aspect of it. I just paint, and that's all I want to do. Okay, let's get rid of those hard edges there. And there. And let's take a look at it. Okay, if this were a student and I were looking at it, I would say, this is confusing me over here. I'm not sure what it is, and I probably drew something there and maybe changed my mind, so I'm going to cover it up. So if you don't understand it and you have a way of covering it up, do so. Okay, let's come in here. And I see his lip has still just ink on it and no color. So that reminds me I have to go in there. And this is confusing me. Oh, that's the end of his mustache. Okay. The reason that it was confusing me is because of this hard, dark line I've got right here. And I need to get rid of it. So these are, I'm talking to myself so you know how I would go about coming around and assisting you if you were in my class. I would be looking at these things and telling you, okay, add a little more white here, get rid of that ink line, that kind of thing. So I want you to do that to yourself. Okay? You can do that. I know you can do that. This area here needs some more red between around that tiny little leaf. It's like there's a space there and there shouldn't be. So I'm going to pick up some more red and come in here and very carefully paint this around and up to the hair. It's part of the hat. Okay. And I'll pull a little bit of the hat inward like that. Maybe a little more right there. Okay, now I can also pull more white over there if I want to, but I kind of like that. It's not bad. I may pull a little bit of red from here out. And maybe right here. And a little more from here. Okay. Once you get started, can't stop. Okay, I don't like that. I'm going to go over that and get rid of it altogether. That's better. And follow your instincts. Many of us that haven't painted for a real long time think that we don't have the right to make decisions because we don't know enough. But if you follow your instincts, if something doesn't look right, it probably isn't. So fix it, change it, do whatever you can. All right, I'm going to go back in, before I work on the face again, I'm going to go back in and see if my red will show up at all on here. Right now the berries are okay. They're just not bright. And I have a feeling that my red will probably end up being just about the same as the red that's on the hat. So I'm just going to do a couple with that hot pink. I don't think it's going to make too much difference. But especially where there's 3 of them, then I'll do 1 of them in that red. And then maybe it will look like there's some that are the right color. Okay, and you can paint them all if you want. The other thing you can do is you can take your hot pink with a little bit of white. Let's mix it in here. And you see how it does make it a pink? Not that I wanted pink berries, But if you wanted them, you could do that with it and make them a little bit on the pink side. They still don't show up real great. In fact, I really think they look better darker. But you get to decide that. You could make it even more defined, or I put highlights on them. If you lost any of them, you may want to put a little more highlight on them with the red or with the white. Okay, now I need to come in, and I created some stubble, and you need to check and see if you did. What I mean by stubble, you know how your husband or your boyfriend has stubble on their face? That means all the hair is about the same length, and that's kind of what's happening here. So I want to come in like this and create a few longer, flying around, looser hairs coming out. I've always liked painting hair. I used to be a hairdresser 100 years ago, but I guess because I understood what it did, how it turned, where it goes, how it gets thinner. So I liked it when I do portraits especially. Okay, that's nice and not too stiff or tight looking. Remember, wispy, especially at the edges. Right, now I want to put some hair on his eyebrows, but before I do that, I want to put a little more pink into my flesh mix, and if you don't have any left, just water down your pink and maybe even pick up a tad of yellow with it, not much. You don't want to create orange, you just want to have a very pinky kind of a color for on his lip. That's a tiny little lip down there. It's almost not worth bothering with, but if you don't bother with it, it'll be noticeable. So we're going to bother with it. Okay? All right. Now we're going to do a little shading on his face, and I'm going to make that mix that is something like this, and it's a mix of your red, yellow, and cobalt blue. So it's the bright rose and a little yellow and a little cobalt blue. So I got that started over here, put some yellow into it and put some cobalt blue in there. And with red, yellow, and blue, what are you going to get? You're going to get a brown, something like a brown. So when you get to a brown, which I got here, I don't know that I want it quite that dark. So I'm going to, what made it darker was the blue. So I'm going to put yellow back into it and a little more red. And I'm going to put water in it because I just want a thin veil of color like that. Not much color at all. And I want it to go right here and down this side of Santa's face, because it's showing you the plane on that side of his face, and it can come up to about there. And then you want to lose the inner edge, and you can just paint right over your eye, your eyebrow, and then I'm going to put a little bit of color down here next to the mustache. If I don't, then this area is going to look real white compared to this. Now I'm going to blend it till there's no transition line. I kind of got a heavy spot here. I really don't mind it. It almost will look like a little rouge area, but with my thirsty brush, I can soften it around. Remember not to have a lot of water in your brush, just a thirsty brush is like when you towel dried your hair and you can't get any more water out of it. I hope that was on screen. I keep telling myself I put this little piece of tape here and I'm supposed to stay above it. I hope I'm staying where I belong. Okay, so that's going to shade that side of his face. Oh, and then we're going to do a little bit of that up here. And I'm just going to form like a triangle shape right here. And then I'm going to lose the inside of that, which will be just a damp, thirsty brush. Just don't let it come in too far. That's good. That's just enough to give you a little bit of a feeling of his face turning or being in an angle where it's not just a flat piece of paper. Okay, and you can see that I work it a little bit, but I know most of the time when it's time to stop, just from experience, because it's the only way you can know that. Okay, now it is time to stop in that area, so I'll go work someplace else. And that is when I'm going to work on my belt. Now I'm going to switch to a large flat brush. I'm comfortable using this. If you're not, stick with your small one. And I'm going to use my Jello blue, which is almost a black, because I'm going to put it on very dark and very dry. And if you don't have it, you can use Payne's Gray, and you may have to do 2 coats, but that's all right. You could use Payne's Gray, you could use ultramarine blue, and or Windsor blue, some very strong blue. And actually, a real funny one that you could do is you could use Viridian and purple, and it would give you a really nice strong dark. If you're using Winsor Newton paint and you have Permanent Rose, Antwerp Blue, and New Gamboge, you can mix a beautiful black with those 3 by using mostly Antwerp Blue, about half of that amount of Permanent Rose, and just a little bit of New Gamboge. First 2 colors will make purple. And what neutralizes purple? Yellow, because it's the complement of purple. Now there's a little shape in here. It's kind of weird, but it's meant to be. I'm just going to leave the hole there. It's meant to be the hole that the belt, I don't know what that kind of part of the belt is called, do you? Well, he doesn't have one because I just covered it up. I was going to suggest you could do that, but I don't know that it'll be noticed. If it really bugs you, paint one back on with white. It's a hole for those little metal things that go through your belt, and I can't think of what they are called. Not that it's so important. Okay, now what I would like you to do is to ask yourself, if you want to brighten your leaves, if you wanted to brighten your leaves, you could add a little viridian here and there. That's a bright green. You could add a little bit of yellow on there. And you could add a little bit of red onto Santa's nose. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dampen the whole nose all the way from the bottom up to the bulbous area, not necessarily all the way up there, but I'm going to pick up just a little bit of one of my reds. It doesn't really matter which one, and just put some of it down here and across here, and then take your brush, take all the water out of it. I may have put it on a little strong. Let's see. Good thing it's me, huh? Yeah, I did. Okay. Well, I do know how to clean everything up, so I get to show you. I never get it quite strong enough, and I always have to do it a couple times, so I thought I'd go a little bit stronger this time. And it's really not too bad, because you know Santa had one of those really red noses. Let's get that out of there. I'm going to work that color up and pick up some of my shading flesh that I had there and just put a little bit of it into the eye area. Now, I'm not sure what I did to get into that mud to get a muddy look, but I'm going to mix a little bit of flesh into my white and just clean that up and soften that top edge of his nose at the same time. Okay, can you see that? Because I really like to put a little highlight on his nose. Let's take a little bit of white. Just right in there. That's good. Okay. Never waste the white. Always have a place for it to go. And once your white dries, you sometimes can see it wasn't quite as heavy now as when you thought it was when you were putting it on. And even using a heavy-bodied white, I wasn't using it straight out of the tube, so I was watering it down, in other words, so I can still see through it in many places. Let's play with this. Okay, so this is what I do, was I will just play with things and putz around until I'm happy with them. Now, one thing I want to show you is a little bit of rouge, and I'm going to wet this down right here and come around in here even. So I basically wet a circle here, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of my red and just like I'm going to scruff it off my brush. I don't want a terrible amount here because I just will get into trouble with it, I know. And I just dampened the paper. I didn't really wet it. And what I want to do is scoot the edge of this out. And what happens sometimes is you just make a bigger circle with it. But I'm going to go below that. And remember I said that was a circle. And then I'm going to come back in. I scooted the edges out. Now I'm going to come back in and really work at trying to get rid of that edge, that outline. Okay, just with a thirsty brush, and see, it did go away. This side's not so bad, but I'm still going to do the same thing. Thirsty brush. Yeah, it works fine. Okay, same thing on the other side. And this is probably the most difficult part of this, is this blending business. I think I don't want much paint, just a scruff. Start up here, go into that, and right about there. Yeah. I love to paint portraits and hope that I am able to do some online portrait classes at some point. And maybe you'll come along and join me. Okay, I've got some hair there, and I'm trying to paint around it. And it's really just easier to kind of pick up some more white and make it come into that area rather than trying to paint around that shape. Let's get rid of the ink there. And I forgot to do the eyebrows. So we need to come back in here, and don't worry about some of the dark showing, because it will and it should. But if you have all white hair, chances are your eyebrows are white. I have several pictures of Santa's helpers in their helper suits. And 2 of them are members of my family. So we have plenty of interest in Santa. But they are only the helpers. It might be a little bit dark, and I may come, or light, I may come back in here and take a little bit of that out, because I really need to have the gray show through. Yeah, otherwise I'll have to put some more back in. Or I could put, see that I'm using acrylic and it dries up so darn fast. I could put a few ink lines back in, or I could even put cobalt blue on there. Right now I think I'm going to I lift it a little bit, and I'll come back and put a few more lines of white. So I hope you went to my site, and I've also got other tutorials, and I have a really nice tutorial on how to paint water drops, if you're interested in that. I've got one on how to use masking fluid and how to paint backgrounds, a couple of other things. And we're trying to get a lot of them up, but it takes time and expertise from the standpoint of all of the computer issues that you have to deal with. And that's not where I'm an expert. Okay, that kind of toned that wrinkle down a little bit. I may put just a scruff of color, and I've got a little white on the brush, just right over the really black lines around the eyes, and maybe even over his wrinkles. Just a scruff will push it back. It's amazing. Okay, I think I need a scruff over here. Yep, sets it right back in there, that too. And I don't think I mind those on his nose, and his eyes are great. Okay, I think mine is finished, and if you want to, I will show you how you can just take and make a little line here, like there's a little thing poking through, and make a little circle out of it. Just something like that. The other thing you could do, for instance, say you wanted to teach this, and you do have permission to do so. What you could do, if you wanted to keep it a really simple class, is to use a black marker and do the belt. And then they wouldn't even have to deal with that, nor an extra color that you may or may not have. So I thought of that after I had this one completed, and I thought, well, I really want you to be able to do a little bit more than that. And now I almost wish I had left the berries alone, because they didn't get real pretty. But I like them, and as long as there's a sparkle on the berries, they look like berries. Okay, on the back of the card, it says, this little card has been designed and painted with love, care, and love, especially for you. It is suitable for framing, and the original drawing is by me, and then it says hand painted by, and that's where you can sign your name. So I hope you enjoy them. And as I said, if you want to copy it and send it to your friends as your Christmas card, that would please me very much. So I hope you like him, and I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas.